Hello, okay, so today I'm going to do a complete beginner tutorial on how to edit a project from start to finish. Now this is going to be honestly the absolute basics if you're really new and you have no idea where to start. So you may be like, oh, why are you doing that? Well, it's because I'm trying to keep it as simple and intuitive as I can for the people who are just getting started into the world of video editing. Now when you first open Resolve, you're going to see something like this. You'd go to New Project and start your project. I'm just going to call this one Tutorial. Press Enter to create. So the first thing we're going to have to do here is sort out our project settings. To do that, you would go to File, Project Settings, surprisingly. And here, the first thing is we have our timeline resolution. So for me, I'm just going to do this one in 1920 by 1080. The timeline frame rate, that's going to be what your footage is, and my footage is at 25 because I'm in England and our LED lights flicker at 25. Playback frame rate, that's just what it's going to display as on your monitor. And then your video monitoring, that's if you have an external device from Blackmagic, so you probably don't need to know that. Next, we're going to come to Optimized Media and Render Cache. If you are using the free version, I always recommend proxying your media because it will make editing that much faster and you will have less bugs and less crap going wrong. So for the proxy media resolution, I just leave it on choose automatically. Proxy media format, if you're on Windows, I would put it to DNxHR-LB. I think you can do that on a Mac as well, I'm not entirely sure. But that one is the lower quality proxy file, which means it takes up a lot less space on your hard drive. If you use the HQX or the 444, it retains basically all the information, but it's better to edit. But honestly, it takes up so much space on your hard drive that it's a pain when you're working off a single SSD. Then you just choose where you want your proxies to be saved. I'm just going to leave mine on the default and then save. So now you can either click and drag your media into the media pool here, or you can go to the media tab, right click here, import media, find your footage and open. I barely ever use the media tab unless I'm importing footage or time lapses, but I'll explain all that in a different video. Okay, so now we have our footage in, we're going to start cutting up our footage. So me and a lot of other people who use Resolve actually skip the cut page entirely. It is really good if you have a speed editor, but if you don't have a speed editor, I don't really think it offers any benefits in comparison to cutting in the edit page, to be honest. So we go straight to the edit tab. Now, if you can't see your media like this, make sure you have these grids selected here, because you can have the thumbnail view, you can have the list view, or you can have a bit more of a detailed and thumbnail view. I'm just going to turn off the inspector now because we don't need it and it's in the way. Now, like I said before, first thing you want to do is proxy all your files. So highlight everything, right click, generate proxy media. I promise you this is going to make it so much faster to edit. Your footage will play back as smooth as butter and it will just be perfect. And to make sure that your proxy media is being used, you want to check playback, use proxy media if available. So you'd also untick this if you want to view the full high quality version of your video, say for when you're in the color tab, for example. Let's get started with the main bit, which is the editing. So you take your main footage, the one of your speaker speaking or you speaking or just whatever is your main footage. Drag it into the timeline. Then you're going to want to zoom into your footage so you can see the timeline better. I always use the Alt and the mouse wheel just to zoom as much as I want. You can come over here instead and this will zoom in on where your mouse cursor is for more detail. Or you can press this one, which will just stretch out the timeline to fill the page. So for this point, we don't really need our media pool, so we can get rid of it for now by coming up here and clicking there. Now we have a better view of our timeline. So this is a part where you're going to cut out all the unwanted bits of your main footage. Now for me, I'm going to drag out the waveform so I can see it better because I know whenever he's not speaking, I don't want that in the video. So I could go to a point where he stops. Here, press B or click here to get the blade tool and then just click here. Now a cut's been made there. So I'm going to go to the end of the silence and you'll notice that your cursor might stick a little bit. That's because you've got snapping on, which makes the cursor snap to the cuts and all the little bits of footage that are clipped around everywhere. So you can just turn it off for now, so you can make the more detailed adjustments. There you go, he's just about to speak there, so make another cut. So once you've made that cut, you want to select this clip in the middle by pressing A to get your cursor back up, clicking on it, and delete. Now say you wanted to delete that, but you wanted the clips to be pushed together. I'll just Control Z. You would click on it, but this time you would press Shift Delete. And that deletes the empty space that would have been left there. Okay, let's go to our other empty spaces and cut them out. Get the blade, drag it along, get the blade again, and Shift Delete. For playing back, I don't want to watch this full 5 minutes. I mean, I've already recorded it. I don't want to sit through it again. So when you press play, if you press L as well, the playback will be at double speed, so you can go through it a lot quicker. Okay, so I noticed a little mistake there. So I'm going to go back, zoom in, find where the mistake was.
And those in that way,
there it is. Click the blade tool again. And Shift Delete. So that is basically how you make all of your cuts. Now, say they said something in the wrong order, you can move your footage around here. If you press the A, click and drag that clip to the end. Drag this one here. Oh, so we turned off our snapping earlier. You're going to want to make sure your snapping is turned back on so it clicks to the clip. And then you would drag this in the empty space, and that's how you would move around all your footage. Once you're happy with your main cut now, you're going to want to add your B-roll, and to do that we'll go back over to the media pool, make sure it's selected, and find what B-roll we want. So let's say here he mentioned something about a consultation. I would want this B-roll over the top. So you can use two screens for this, which I find useful. If you come here and press this, you will have your source monitor and your timeline. So on the right you can see everything in your timeline.
Doing a liner fill on the way out.
You want to make sure you're adding your B-roll between words at the start of a new sentence. You don't want to add it halfway through a word because it's just weirdly jarring if you're doing that. So here's where I want my B-roll to start. Double click on the consultation and see which bit I want. I want this bit to start here. So you would find that and press I on your keyboard. I'll let it go for maybe 2 seconds. And then press O, and then you can just drag it from the window here or drag it from there, snap it to your timeline, and there you go. Just turn my snapping tool off so I can see what that transition looks like.
Doing a liner fill on the way out. As far as vascular conclusion,
yeah, so I'm happy with that. Now I'm going to turn the source monitor off again by coming up to here. Now you don't have to do it like that. You can just drag your footage onto the timeline like this. And then you can either cut it up like we cut the main footage with the blade tool, deleting bits we don't want, and then dragging it around. Okay, just a quick note. If you're using footage on top of footage like this, and say you know you want the B-roll to start here at the start of Tim's clip here, but on the top, you've decided you want the B-roll clip to start here, you cannot use ripple delete up here because it will delete some of the clip below, like this. If you did this, see, it's taken out a chunk of that clip. I don't know why it's taken a chunk out of that clip. It doesn't work well when you have a clip on top of a clip, so just remember that. I really want to know why it's done it like that. It seems really weird, but anyway, you're going to avoid that, so don't worry about it. The only time you would do that is if you wanted to delete what was underneath as well, and there you would have to make a cut on that one, highlight them both by holding Shift, and then Shift deleting them like that. Instead of using the blade tool, you can also just drag like this, hover over it until your mouse cursor looks like this, drag it down, and then you can move it around after you've done that. So for the last bit of footage, I'll show you if you want to do a cross dissolve or a fade on, something like that. So let's drag our footage on top, zoom in so we can see it better. There are a couple of ways to do that. At the top you can see this little white shape here. You can drag this along and that will be how long your cross dissolve works for. So let's try it for a second.
On a cadaver course, because
there you go, that's quite nice. Control Z, or you can come over to the effects library Come here, click video transitions, and you have all these different dissolves you can choose from. If you hover over it, it actually plays back for you without you having to put it on it, which is quite nice. If I were you, I would stay away from all of these types of transitions. Just honestly, I think these types of transitions are the main thing that are going to separate you from all the beginners. There isn't much use for them, and most of the time you're going to want to use hard cuts anyway. Cross dissolves are acceptable sometimes. The rest, just stay away from unless the situation actually calls for it and it looks good, because I can guarantee you it is not as cool as you think it is. Okay, that's it for our B-roll. Now if you want to add a title, a subtitle, a little heading here to say his name at the start, you go to titles. You could just choose something simple like text, drag it along. Then you would come to inspector over here. Make sure that your title is selected. Then you would type Dr. Tim Pierce. Choose what font you want. It's going to show you a real-time update of it as well, which is very nice. Let's go for the cowboy theme. I would never use this in an actual video, by the way. You can add things like a drop shadow by offsetting it a little bit, making it stand out a little bit more. If it is for a name, you want to move it down to the bottom. Normally the bottom left, like there, I find is one of the best places. I'm going to change that font. I can't look at it anymore. There we go. Oh, it's gone off. So you can also adjust the position, like here. You can add a little background if you want to. So you come here, just need to make sure the height's up a little bit. Bring the width back. Opacity up. There you go. So there's all those things that you can play with. There you go. And for that, we just add a little cross dissolve at the start and at the end to fade the title in and out.
It's more risky than other techniques. So it depends, obviously, on which risks you're looking at.
You also have access to some like pre-made Fusion titles. So don't worry, you don't have to even look at the Fusion tab now because it is quite complicated when you're starting off. So you'll get things like this, which is a nice little lower third. You can click and drag one of those on top. Again, make sure it's highlighted, and then you can change that. Dr. Tim Pierce. And these are just nice little pre-animated ones for you to use.
We are concerned mostly about that.
It might be a little bit laggy at first. You just need to let it render.
Are we concerned?
Okay, now let's fix up our audio. So we'll just get rid of the effects library and the media pool because we don't need them. Zoom out all the way. So you can see here our audio is around minus 17, 15. And for voices, you want it to be between -6 and -3. So if you click and drag over all of your clips, right click and come to normalize audio levels. We're going to change that to -3. And we're going to have it on independent, so it treats every clip the same. This is good in case you have one clip where it smacks the microphone or something. You don't want every other clip to be related to that one. And then normalize. If you come over here, click these 3 dots and go to mixer. Okay, you can see that this waveform here looks a little bit quieter than the others, and this is because, like I said,
We actually do provide.
he hit the microphone at that point. So we're just going to click and drag this up a little bit so the waveforms look similar across the board.
Reclusion, and that might be one way that it's a.
Do it again for this one. Okay, so now our audio is getting to around -10 to -5, which is nice. That's where we want it. Next, we're going to bring in our music. So I'll go back to the media pool. I haven't imported my music. 1 second. There we go. I just had to drag my music in. So I just want a little bit more space on my timeline because as you can see, it's looking a bit full. So if you hover over and find these lines, you can drag the size of the timeline down, or you can come to this button here and where it says track height, you can drag that so you can end up seeing a lot more of your timeline. Just drag that one, the audio down too. Now I'm going to drag my music in. I'll just play it at the start so we can hear the volume differences.
Some people think of tenting like that. I actually think of it as just one.
Okay, so the music is way too loud in comparison, and you want your music to be around 20 to 30 decibels less than your voice is. So to do that here, we're going to watch the audio tracks. So the voice is around -10. We want the audio to be peaking at around -30. So we come to audio 2, which is the track that the music is on, and drag this slider down. Let's try there.
As far as vascular...
There we go. So now it's peaking around -20 less. Let's listen to them together.
Over a treatment. So some people think of tenting like that. I actually think of it as just the one injection. So the tenting.
Okay, so the audio is still just around -10. I think we can push it a little bit more because it doesn't look like it's peaking.
Is one injection, and then treatment design
push
is
that up.
how you assemble those individual injections into an overall treatment plan. So looking at the vertical injection on its own, so simply inserting the needle and doing a line of fill on the way out. As far as vascular occlusion is concerned, I think it's a relatively low risk injection because you're running at 90 degrees to the superior.
So you want to make sure that it doesn't
So
clip, like when it showed red here, that meant it was clipping, and you don't want that in your audio. So as long as your audio isn't clipping, then you're good to go. This is not how I edit audio. I edit audio in the Fairlight tab, but like I said, because this is for absolute beginners, I'm just going over the absolute basics. There are definitely better ways to do your audio, and I'm going to link a quick 2-minute video in the description for you if you want to look at that. I recommend doing because it will make your audio sound that much better than it will just from this tutorial on its own. Okay, so once you've got your footage, your music, everything's cut up, you're going to want to go to the color tab. Okay, so now we're in the color tab. Now, I know it looks daunting and it's your first time here, so we are just going to use the absolute basics today. There are better ways to color, but they are also more complicated. So I'm just going to show you the easiest way to do it, which means we're only going to be using one of these nodes. We're not going to be doing things like this. Oh dear, see how complicated it can get. Now first, let's check our levels in our video. So we come here, click on the waveform. You want to make sure that none of these are touching the bottom 0. So like this, because that means that the blacks have no information in them. So if they are doing that, you want to come to the lift color wheel here, go on the slider and just drag it up until none of your blacks are clipped out. Same with the highlights. You don't want any of your highlights to be clipped out because that's just pure white with no information. So you come to the gain circle and do the same thing but on the opposite side. Next you want to play with the midtones. For today we're just going to leave it up to your personal preference, whatever you think looks good. If you think your white balance might be wrong on your camera, or you've set it up wrong, say it's too blue, too orange, I actually think this one is a little bit too orange. You can come here to the white balance eyedropper, find something white or neutral grey in your video. It's a lot easier if you want to zoom in with the mouse wheel. Then you can click and hold the mouse wheel and drag round. So I remember this book was quite a nice white when I was filming. So I'll click on that. And there we go, the white balance has been corrected. And that looks so much better. Just check a before and after. If you want to do a before and after yourself, it's Control and D when you're clicking on the node. So yeah, that looks so much better. So now you just want to check your skin tones are correct, because skin tones are probably the most noticeable thing in a lot of amateur videos. A lot of the time they just look wrong. And you might not even notice it on your computer because computers, monitors, phones, they all have a different color scheme to them. I used the Mac displays for so long, and every time I exported something and saw it on a TV, someone's phone, someone's laptop, it looked disgusting. So you want to make sure it's accurate according to color science. This is the most advanced thing we're going to do in this because I think it's really important even for beginners. So you come down here to the scopes and choose vector scope. You want to make sure that your skin tone line is on here. To do that, click these 3 dots, show skin tone indicator. And that is the line that your skin tone wants to be around. It doesn't have to be exactly on, it can be a little bit to the left, a little bit to the right, because some people are a bit more yellow, some people are a bit more red. But no matter what race you are, you will be around this skin tone line. So once you've got that turned on, you come to this circle here where it says window, click on it, and we're just going to make a circle. Now resize the circle just to someone's forehead, let's say. I just turn the softness all the way down. Bring it here. I'm going to zoom in to make this a little bit more accurate. As you'll notice, our color changes now are only affecting everything inside this circle. But that's fine. This is just for us to test what it looks like anyway. Then come here and press the highlight option. Okay, and now, as you can see, yeah. Oh, this never usually happens straight away. This is great. So as you can see, our skin is on that line exact. So our guy looks normal. If your skin's off that line a little bit, you can do it in a couple of different ways. So the first way I would do it is mess with the tint slider. So bring it left to go more towards the yellow and green side, right to go more towards the red, magenta side. But as ours is perfect, I'll just undo that. We can leave it as it is. Now the other way of doing it is with the offset circle wheel here. You'll see if you drag it like that, it will change the colors. You probably shouldn't, and you probably won't need to use it like that. The only time I ever need to use it like that is when I'm using certain Sony cameras, because their color science is always more towards the green. So it's not just the temperature of the shot that's wrong, it's the actual color of the camera. So everything in the footage needs to be changed, not just the tint. Okay, so once you're happy with that, press the circle again to delete it. Zoom back out. Then add your little bits of contrast to make it pop a little bit more, which is here. Slide to the right a little bit. That's nice. Some saturation. I filmed this quite flat, so I'm just going to add just a tiny little pop there. And there you go. For a basic color edit, that's pretty nice. Let's just do a Control and D. Before, after, before, after. Now it's time to deliver. So you go to the deliver page. Okay, so now we're on the deliver page. If you want to keep this simple and you're uploading for YouTube or Vimeo, you can just select one of the presets here. So today let's just go for the YouTube presets, change the file name, tutorial, oh, I can't even spell, tutorial. Then you would choose the location. I'm just going to do it in storage today. 1920 by 1080, frame rate 25. It should be exactly what you chose, but just check just in case. And then once you've done that, add to render queue. It will pop over here. You can also upload directly to YouTube from Davinci Resolve. I've never tried that, but I'd prefer to do all that manually anyway, so let's just ignore that today. And then render all. Okay, now your video is going to render and you have made your first beautiful masterpiece. Like I said at the start, this is just for absolute beginners. There's a lot more that's not been covered, but hopefully this was enough to help you make your first video or to give you a little bit of a confidence boost when you're making future videos.